All right, everybody, and a very special guest for you all. I want everybody to welcome to the show, Evan Pozios. Welcome, Evan.
Hi guys, how you doing?
Good. How are you, man?
Doing well, doing well.
Yeah. Thanks for being here. And first time guests, so we always put people through this awful thing of telling us your origin story. Yeah. So we're going to talk about a little bit about Zoop and your book, Blood Run. But just how did you get into writing comics? And have you always been a fan of comics? That whole thing.
Gotcha. Yeah, I grew up, a spinner rack kid, particularly
Mhm.
a Marvel kid. I was a big fan of G.I. Joe, Captain America, West Coast Avengers, and kind of, kept that passion going throughout my life. And sort of a late bloomer in sort of my mid 40s. I went to New York Comic Con and went to a panel on writing comics. And I said, you know what, I'm going to give this a shot. And, my first project was with Alex Sanchez, who's done a lot of work for Marvel and IDW. And we hit it off, and we did a book called Time Grunts that was published by Caliber in 2017.
Okay. So you just had you had an idea, and you're like, man, I want to tell this story. Let me take a stab at writing a script.
Yeah, I've always, been passionate about creative writing, and I think I just got to a point in my life where I had to get something out on the page, and somebody told me once that all of us have at least one good story in us, and so hopefully I have a few of them. And, I'm having a lot of fun, meeting a lot of great people, and I'm just trying to improve with every story.
And besides the Caliber, there was another publisher you wrote for too, right? Did you do another book after
Yeah,
that?
yeah. So I pitched a story called Silence to Second Sight Publishing,
Hmm.
and they were so impressed with it. They called me the same day and said we're interested. And,
Nice.
um, it was my first crack at the horror genre,
Mhm.
and it's strange. I've never really been a huge horror fan growing up, and still don't really consume too much in the way of horror in terms of pop culture. But this is a story that was pretty personal. It dealt with sort of losing sight of your dreams, and the threat of never getting them back.
Mm.
And I think a lot of people can relate to it. And how far would you go to maintain your dreams and try to achieve them?
Hmm. Yeah, because I see the kind of creepy poster behind you.
Yes, yeah. So I teamed up with Alex on that, and
Mhm.
issue one was a success. It was released in comic shops in February, and due to some paper issues, which of course are going around everywhere, issue two has been delayed, but should be in shops pretty soon.
Okay.
And when you
Awesome.
made that first book with Caliber, how did you hook up with Alex?
Um, actually, I was looking for artwork as a gift for my brother, who's a psychiatrist, and he's also a big Batman fan. And I was looking for, any sort of anything related to psychiatry mixed with Batman. And I saw this book called Joker's Asylum. It was a one shot that DC did, probably 10 years ago now. And the artist was Alex Sanchez. So I reached out to him, and I think he thought I was a little annoying. I said, "Do you have this page available?" He said, "No, it's gone. This page, no, it's gone. This page." He's like, "All right, man, this is what I have available." I was like, "Okay." So I bought a page from him, and then I had this little short story called "The Catharsis of Ezra," which deals with sort of myself and also the city of Detroit, and how we sort of once had a lot of potential and then have fallen on hard times, and how both are trying to make a comeback.
Hmm.
And I pitched it to him. I said, "Would you mind drawing a little ash can?" He said, "Sure." And it almost became like a tutorial in comic scripting. He sort of made available his library of scripts that he's done in the past. Gave me a lot of tips on panel views, pacing, switching up panels and pages so they're not repetitive. And we hit it off. And then a few months after that, I said, "I'm working on this story. It's kind of like uh, Time Bandits meets GI Joe." He's like, "Oh my god, those are two of my favorite things." And like, you know, He's like,
Nice.
sign me up. So yeah, we just we did a few self-published. The first 3 issues were self-published, and we sold them at New York Comic Con. They were received quite well. And then I was in Grand Rapids, actually, Grand Rapids Comic Con. And I don't know if you guys have interviewed Andrea Molinari. He's a editor for Scout. He writes The Shepherd. But there's this guy dressed like a shepherd. He cosplays his character usually when he's at shows. I said, who is this guy? And at the time he was with Caliber, and I said, I've got this book called Time Grounds, and I showed it to him. He's like, wow, this is great. And they reached out, and said, we'd like to sign you. So,
wow,
yeah,
awesome.
So
Yeah,
if you see a guy dressed like a shepherd at a show, approach him.
it was a sign.
Exactly.
That man has connections.
Exactly. Connections are everything.
I would almost think the opposite of someone like cosplaying. I'm like, oh, that's not the guy who I give my comic to.
Yeah, I give him credit for going all out, and the guy has a PhD in religion, very well spoken, great editor. But here he is, really, I give him credit for sort of pounding the pavement and getting into his character so much, that he loves so much to do that.
Yeah, it is pretty awesome. And you said you're from Detroit, so I can talk a little bit about. So I travel for my job, and what I've noticed is there's some cool comic shops around that area that I've been to. So, is that what you see? Is the comic scene still alive and well around Detroit?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, the local shops are all unique in their own way. They're all very busy. You've also got, besides Caliber, you've got Source Point Press, who's based out of Michigan. You got shops like Vault of Midnight that, are just go above and beyond to have, signing events and whatnot. So, yeah, I mean, Michigan is very strong in the comic scene for sure.
That's cool. Have you put your books out at any of the local shops?
Oh, yeah. Comics Corner has been, very, very helpful in terms of ordering my books and then organizing signings. Coy's Comics in Saginaw is fantastic. They do something pretty cool, actually, on Tuesday nights. They do like a Facebook Live of all their, Wednesday inventory. So people can kind of see ahead of time what's out there and then, put an order in and say, reserve this for me. So they do a great job. And actually, last night I was at Comic Signal in Grand Rapids and picked up a few indies. One DC book, one Marvel, but yeah, another great shop.
Cool. All right, so let's talk about this project you're doing now, Blood Run, that you have up on Zoop. And so how did this get all started?
So most of my stories, I try to accomplish 2 things. I try to visually entertain people, but also have some sort of message that resonates with the reader. And so Blood Run, it deals with the rat race and sort of how a lot of times we can get caught up in this, race through life. And we look back and say, what was this all for? What did we do? What did we accomplish? So that's sort of the crux of what it's about. But in terms of entertainment value, it's blood, it's bullets, it's violence, it's racing, it's colorful characters with even more colorful vehicles. And I was lucky enough to work with Stefano Cardacelli on this book.
Heavy metal, right?
Heavy metal, Scout just was announced. He's got 2 books coming out with Source Point. It's pretty cool. We work Marvel style. So, I'll kind of give him a rough plot, some character ideas, and then he'll go through and do the layouts on his own. So when you work that way, it's a little scary because you're not sure, what you're going to get. But with a guy like that, I mean, it kind of like you can rest assured he's going to, bring his A game.
Mm-hmm. I think the art is pretty fantastic for the project.
Thank you. Yeah. He's killer.
Well, it's funny because Stefano worked with another recent guest of ours. You said the Source Point Press book on Caffeinated Hearts, which, if there could be a polar opposite of the book that you're presenting, I think it's Caffeinated Hearts.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
so I'm impressed from that point of view.
Yeah,
Jonathan's fantastic. But yeah, when you look at our trailers and compare them, they are like polar opposites. Caffeinated Hearts, visually stunning, but sort of that low key pace, very mellow.
Right.
And Blood Run is just like Mad Max type of carnage, Twisted Metal. If you're a PlayStation fan.
Oh yeah, old school Twisted Metal, man. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
And it's more of a literal sense of like different classes of people driving different cars, right?
Yeah, I mean you've got everything. You've got two guys who are garbage truck drivers. You've got a funeral director who drives a hearse. You've got an attorney who goes around passing out cards after he leaves a body in his wake. Some pretty crazy stuff, and sort of your young upstarts who think they're hot stuff.
Yeah.
So a good colorful mix.
And I know you're offering a few different things. You do have a variant cover from Ed Bickford.
Yeah. So if people aren't familiar with Ed Bickford's work, he is fantastic. I think he's going to be one of the next cover artist superstars out there. Very similar to Jack Kirby. Very intricate, mechanical details. Puts everything he's got into his work. His background recently has been doing a lot of fantasy type of art, role-playing games and whatnot. But I believe he's got a title coming out with Scout very soon. He's also doing some sequential art for me, a title called Sunday Drive. It's a 12-page black and white short story.
Oh, okay.
So a great guy too, great to work with.
Nice.
And you pitched this book as kind of a one-shot, 42 pages. So is this a one and done type of thing, or do you see it moving forward with more story to come?
Possibly more story. We've been approached by 2 publishers already about it, going the traditional route. One thing I want to make clear is, working with Zoop, they've been fantastic. And this is not going to be a title that's also, you're not going to see it on Kickstarter or not going to see it on Indiegogo. We're just working with Zoop and that's it. And, they've been loyal to us and very helpful. And we hope to have a long-term relationship with them.
Yeah. So that's a perfect segue for us to talk about that, because you're our first guest that's worked with a Zoop project. So how did that come about? How's that going?
It's going great. I mean, how often can you work with a company and the CEO himself, reaches out to you and, says this art looks great. And they've been very helpful in terms of getting all of our ducks in a row. They did a lot of vetting, not just in terms of the product, but also, Stefano's reach in terms of social media, my reach in terms of social media, trying to get as many email signups as possible ahead of time. So it's almost like, one-stop crowdfunding shopping. This is, something that can be a big headache for creators. And they take a lot of that, off of our plate so that we can focus on the books.
Mm-hmm.
And also very, very adept at marketing. They're out there on Twitter, on Facebook, pushing the book, which is nice to see.
Are they exclusively working with comic creators? Is that their kind of deal?
Yeah, their thing is only comics. So you're not going to find, other than, somebody who's got a perk that might be, a toy or something like that. You're not going to find anything other than comics on there.
And I've heard that they do all the fulfillment for you. Is that true? And if so, like, how is that process compared to maybe doing a Kickstarter where you're kind of trying to figure that all out on your own?
Gotcha. The main difference is, they handle all of the shipping. So you're not dealing with envelopes and packaging and ensuring, everything is packed the right way. They handle all of that. They offer 2 different tiers, a lower tier where they offer less services, and then something with a higher percentage they take where they do more marketing, really get your book out there.
Interesting.
So is it?
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Is it a deal where, like, are they printing it for you, or are you printing it and then sending it to them, and then they're doing fulfillment?
Printing and sending, and they do the fulfillment.
Okay.
And do they have any say of like setting the goal, or is that still all come from you, kind of like Kickstarter?
They definitely make a recommendation.
Okay.
You know, I think all of us have a certain goal in mind, and then you have sort of your realistic, you know, what's the bare minimum I'm going to get. So, yeah, I mean, that's one thing that's tough right now with the economy the way it is. It's sort of, you know, people are holding back on their spending to wait and see, you know, what's going to happen. So I think that has affected, you know, crowdfunding books in particular.
And is there an amount of days? Oh, 11 days left. Okay, so yeah, as far as the time period goes, about the same. Was it out there for about a month, right?
Yeah, 30 days. Yep.
Okay. And you typically see like an influx of people when it first opens up, and then you'll probably see another influx at the end of it.
I hope so. We've had sort of a weird, you know, a weird time in terms of funding. We had a little pop, you know, the first day or two. Then there was quite a lull, and then another pop, and then you know, we're sort of in, you know, lull territory. They actually reached out to me to, you know, draft a thank you and all that because they were expecting, you know, to fund a few days ago. So it's only a matter of time, I think.
Okay. Yeah. It was definitely something I had my eye on already, and Chris had texted me. He's like, "Oh, this is the interview for Sunday," and I was like, "Oh, okay." I was already looking at this book, so perfect.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think that's a pretty cool testament to your work that you've already had a couple of publishers reach out about it, right? So
yeah, that's definitely you know, stuff like that is what keeps you going and makes you realize, you know, all the hard work and your storytelling is starting to pay off.
Great.
And do they provide like creator tools similar to Kickstarter? Like, do you know how many people are coming to the campaign, checking it out, all that kind of stuff when you're doing it?
Yeah, there's not a dashboard per se, you know, but if you reach out, they'll give you the data that you're interested in.
Okay.
I guess it's probably a question for them, but I'm just curious at how their reach is compared to a Kickstarter. I gotta assume it's smaller since they're newer, but I'm curious what their like kind of turnover is with that.
Yeah, I think, you know, they're, you know, getting the word out. They had a table in San Diego. They did, I think, 2 or 3 panels in San Diego, and a couple of their books, you know, have hit some pretty gaudy numbers. I think Axe Wielder John was over 200K. There was an anthology to benefit refugees from Ukraine. I think was over 100,000, well over 100,000. And I mean, they've got some heavy hitters. You know, Panosian has a art book on there that funded, I think, the first day. He's over 10,000. One of the descendants of Bram Stoker actually has a book on there, which is pretty cool.
Oh, wow.
That's crazy.
Yeah, they're close to funding also.
Yeah, I think that's how I first heard about them, was the book benefiting Ukraine, because I think Alex Ross had liked on the cover art or something like that, and that's how I heard about it. But yeah, I mean, you still got quite a bit of time here, you know, and we'll certainly plug it too with links and everything like that. But
thank you.
Yeah, so if our listeners or watchers want to follow you and all the stuff you're doing, are you out on Twitter and stuff like that?
Yeah, I'm very active on Twitter. Any work that Stefano and I do together will be on the Gloomy Cat Productions Facebook page or Instagram page. We sort of are building an imprint there. One cool thing also, we anticipate a stretch goal, and we'll be offering a 12-page ash can of a short horror story we did. Stefano and I did. Yeah, so you know, for, you know, that second tier where you're getting the variant cover, the main cover, and then possibly the ash can for $29, it's a pretty good deal.
Awesome.
Yeah, so everybody make sure to go check out the campaign. I'll have the link in the show notes down below so you can find it there. Yeah, it looks like a really cool book. Zoop is honestly becoming bigger and bigger as I'm watching it with every project, so everybody should be keeping their eyes on it if they're a comics fan. And Evan, thanks so much for being on, and we'll have to do this again sometime.
Thank you guys, appreciate it.